and welcome to our board candidate forum for District 1, which covers West Louisville and parts of downtown. My name is Dr. Rita Greer, and I'm a former teacher and Director of Human Resources for JCPS, and a lifelong educator. I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Louisville and was director of the doctoral program at Spalding University. Tonight, we had planned a forum with 2 candidates. However, one of our candidates has not been able to make it so far. So I'm going to let Bailey, our other moderator, introduce herself, and then we will get started. Instead of having 2 candidates, we're going to have a conversation with our one candidate this evening, Ms. Gail Strange. Bailey?
Thank you. I'm Bailey Loosemore. I am the Government and Accountability Editor for the Courier-Journal. Our school district is facing major issues that impact our kids in our communities, so it is important that we make an informed choice in November. We thank our candidate, Ms. Strange, for coming this evening so we can get to know her better.
Thank you for having me.
The role of a school board member is to work as part of the team that governs the school district, setting policy, providing resources to improve academic achievement for each student in the district. The school board hires, supervises, and evaluates the superintendent and reports to the community as their elected trustee. Board members also approve the strategic plan and any district improvement plans. They monitor for district accountability. They adopt the budget and determine the impact on student accountability. They also determine graduation requirements. They advocate for public education and must adequately prepare and participate in board meetings, and that's a job in itself. The list goes on, and as you can see, the job is extremely, extremely important.
For this evening's forum, held by the Louisville Urban League, the Courier-Journal, the League of Women Voters of Louisville, and the Louisville branch of the NAACP, we would have used a timed format. In the instance of one candidate, we will let Ms. Strange answer the question, each question, without a time limit.
Great.
Don't take too much time, though. I will say, those in the audience can use index cards on your seat to write down your questions, which we will collect and ask Ms. Strange. At the end, the candidates will each get 1 minute. Well, you will get a minute for closing remarks.
I will ask the first set of questions, but in order for us to start, let's ask our candidate here just to tell us a little bit about herself.
Well, thank you again for having me here. And I hope Mr. Gatton is okay and nothing has happened, because clearly, as Tim Waltz said, his non-answer is damning. And to not show up for something this important is concerning. But to tell you a little about me, I have actually been on the board since December of 2023, when Diane Porter had to resign for health reasons. And I actually ran for this office in 2005 against Ann Elmore, if you all remember her. And so this is not something that I casually thought about doing. I was happily retired in November, and when the call came to ask me to do this, it was my honor to even be considered to apply to fill the seat. But more about me. I was born and raised here in Louisville, a product of Jefferson County Public Schools, undergrad from Kentucky State University, and a master's from Webster University. And I actually obtained a teacher's certificate in secondary education in health and physical education. And taught, did long-term substitution for a while, and then went into corporate America. And it was in corporate America where I learned the value of strategic planning and strategic communications for many, many years as the Director of Corporate and Community Relations for Brown & Williamson Tobacco, which meant working with many, many, many community groups, not only here, but around the country. And so that gave me an opportunity to see what things were happening in communities like Louisville and communities unlike Louisville. And so I've had a passion for working in the community. But the one thing that I know that really does make a difference in everyone's life, and that's a quality education, because education is the tool that levels the playing field. And without a quality education, it's practically impossible to improve your station in life. And so we need to make sure that every child in Jefferson County has the opportunity not only for that education, but the opportunity to access the best education that our city, our county, our district can offer. And so I have been a huge advocate. I only have one child, but I have many children, because I'm a huge advocate of making sure children have exposure to opportunities and to things that they may have never been able to see. If that's no more than taking them to the opera or to the ballet or a play or to hear the Louisville Orchestra, or even just to take them on a trip somewhere to Kings Island or somewhere close. But children need to have exposure, and that I'm a strong advocate for providing exposure for children in all sorts of experiences, positive experiences. So that's about me.
Great.
Thank you.
So, Gail, let's just, since we're having a conversation versus back and forth, so let's talk a bit about, you've been in the position as a board member now for a minute.
8 months.
8 months.
9 months, something like that.
So, how do you manage to keep abreast of those duties? How do you lay things out with, you said you were retired, but how do you lay the things out so that you can keep abreast of all that's going on in the district?
Well, that's where I think my experience in corporate America really comes in handy, because it helps me to compartmentalize tasks that need to be handled immediately, things that need to be studied. And it also gives me a different eye. I want to know bottom line kind of stuff. You've been to some of the meetings, and so when I'm asked, when I'm told that if we take transportation away from 16,000 magnet and traditional students, and I take you at your word, then I expect you to be able to tell me how many hours we will gain, instructional hours we will gain as a result of that. So I'm always looking for what's the bottom line? How is this going to improve the education outcomes and experiences of our students? So that's my first thought. How will that improve what these kids learn, what the kids learn in school? And then secondly, how will it impact the families and the communities? Because it's beyond just the children, because we know that children are impacted by their families, their communities, and everything that goes on around them. So I compartmentalize first the student, secondly the family, and then thirdly the community.
So you've spoken a minute about your experiences and the things that have helped prepare you for the school board, but how do you engage your constituency? How do you get out there to those moms and dads that are out there and they've got some issues or challenges? How do you get out there with those folks?
With those folks?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I haven't been able to get out there as much as I want to at this point, because I'm still learning what I'm doing in this role. But I'm very effective and very conscientious about replying to emails, because parents need to, it's very rude and disrespectful for someone to send you an email and you don't reply, especially if it's one of your constituents. I've started visiting the schools, and so advocating for some of the things that I see in the schools in District 1 which are not pleasing to me. And then I'm not going to say challenging the board, but making sure that the board or that the district knows about the problems that are in the school. And so when I'm there in the schools, and I am in school, 2 schools every single day since transportation went away. And so that gives me an opportunity to talk to teachers, to talk to parents in the car line, to talk to parents at games. More about me, I have great nieces and nephews that attend Jefferson County Public Schools, and I have a granddaughter who is attending Male High School. And so I'm at events, school events all over again. I thought all that was behind me, but I am now attending games. I am in car lines. And so I interact with people in those opportunities and with community events.
When you look back over these last few months, so, and you know, if you're elected, what's coming. So what will be your top 3 priorities? Where are you gonna get in there and knock them over the head?
My top 3 priorities are, number 1, which has always been my number 1 priority in applying for this seat, is to close the achievement gap for Black students and students of color, because that is a serious matter. And it's not that our children are incapable of learning. We just have to make sure that they're being taught and that they learn the correct information. And so I was very, very excited to be a part of setting the goals and guardrails that we did, because that holds everybody accountable. You will have, again, I told you I'm kind of bottom line, so we will have stats that we will be measuring performance against, and expectations and outcomes that we will be looking for our students. And I specifically asked that those numbers be pulled out for Black children and children of color, because I want to know specifically how are they doing, not just generally how the whole student body is doing, but to close that gap, we have to know how our children are performing. Secondly, I don't want us to take our eye off of this transportation issue. And I think that has sort of settled down. Everybody's okay. But 850 is the number that we have been given, are the number of Black students that lost or left magnet and traditional schools as a result of the loss of transportation. So we still have to fight that fight to make sure those children don't lose the opportunity to be in those schools and don't lose their seats in those schools. And then last but not least, and certainly it is as important as everything, and that's making sure that we get the right superintendent to succeed Dr. Polio.
We're gonna ask a question about that a little later.
Okay.
Okay. You've been on the board. You've sat there through the meetings. You have seen board members that are kind, sincere, and adversary. So what will be your approach to conflict resolution to help this board gel so that we can move the district, the board can move the district?
Well, some of the things that I saw in some of the board meetings, I was literally appalled.
Okay.
And I have served on boards across this country, and I have not seen some of the behavior that I saw. The way that we work comprehensively as a team, I think, number 1, we have to respect each other. We have to respect what each other brings to the table, each other's experiences, their voice. And so for me, that means not talking over each other, not being condescending to other board members, and respecting what people say. I don't have to agree with you to respect you.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, here we go. If you are elected, you will be part of the board that chooses the next superintendent. What qualities are most important to you in that next superintendent? And will diversity be a factor in your decision-making?
We are a minority-majority school district. So diversity, I would love for students to look up and see the head of JCPS look like them. But I think we seriously have to do a national search to look for innovation, to look for ways that are working in other cities and states across this country.
Okay.
JCPS is a very large district, but we are not the largest district in this country, and other large districts are being successful. So we need to look for those individuals who will bring a history of success, a history of moving academics forward, a history of preparing students for academic readiness in literacy and numeracy, a candidate that has excelled in making sure we have the correct staff in correct positions.
Thank
That's
you.
what I'm looking
Thank
for.
you. I'm an HR person, and absolutely, absolutely. I totally understand that one. Okay, so let's go back. Last year, transportation was I think they called it fiasco?
I called it a debacle.
Okay, so one of those words I don't know which one's the best one, but one of those words.
It was not well.
So
It was not good.
It was not done well.
Yeah.
So we talk about the number of students that are not receiving transportation accessibility at this point.
Okay.
So you get on the board. You have another chance at looking at this transportation issue and the challenges. You know, you've been working on that a little bit this year since you've been on. What is it that you would like to change about this transportation system in light of what they're telling us? We don't have enough drivers. We've got drivers that are supposed to be coming on, but they didn't pass the additional test, and so we're all over the place. So if you get here and you're gonna be the permanent person here, then what is it? What are we gonna do with the transportation? What are we gonna do with that?
Well, I would like to revisit the Prasmatic study. I think we spent a lot of time and money on a consultant, and perhaps we're not happy with the results of that study, and did not give it the time that I thought it needed to really thoroughly examine and to do a deep dive into what the consultant was saying.
Well, you know, at one point, it became a blame factor. So we're trying to
I'm
figure
being
out.
nice.
Yeah, so we're pushing it. We're pushing the blame here. We're pushing the blame back here. So we didn't go in and say, hey, let's dive deeply and see.
That didn't happen.
That
And
didn't
that's,
happen.
if you'll remember at one of the board meetings, I recommended that we take time, because taking transportation away from middle and magnet and traditional school students, in my opinion, was low-hanging fruit and a quick fix for a big problem.
Okay.
And so the numbers don't lie. We have a bus driver shortage. I mean, that's real. That's very real. But let's think how we can creatively do something. Maybe we don't pick every child up at a bus stop. Maybe we use the community more and go to a community church parking lot where many children from those schools come to the parking lot, rather than us making multiple stops. You make one stop. But I don't think we gave it enough energy, and I know the staff would disagree, and I know they did spend some long hours, but I don't think we went deep enough and creatively enough to think outside the box on how to address the issue.
Energy and creativity.
Mhm.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. Critics of public schools argue that our schools are failing poor children. Our reading and math scores are not where we want them to be. They're in the pits. Others are talking about society or failing our children because of the housing issues, because they're poor, because they're hungry, because of the lack of workforce. Where do you see us? Where do you fall into this? What is it that you're seeing in terms of our public schools and all that's out there with this majority-minority system? Tell us about that.
Well, like I said, I'm in at 2 schools every day, mostly in the car line, but I also go in those schools, Foster Academy and Grace James Academy. And they are doing some remarkable work in those schools. And I know that because I talk to students, family students that go there.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what they're learning. Today, I went to Western Traditional Middle School and Breckenridge Franklin School, and I was blown away because there are some really, really good things going on in our schools. Unfortunately, that's not the narrative we hear. Now, I'm not pretending to sugarcoat this in any way, shape, form, or fashion, because there is work to do. But, like I said, there are some things worth celebrating because we have 6 schools that came out of the CSI status, which included Bick, Cameron, Sanders, Shelby, Wickerson, and Moore Middle School. But at Breckenridge Franklin today, which was, I think, 81 out of 90 in the worst performing schools, and in 4 years, they have gone up to number 28. But that's because of the principal and the programs that he's put in place and the instructional efforts that he's put in place and the staff that he has hired. And those little, you know, when you go to a school unexpected and you see children in their seat and they're doing the work, they don't know you're coming. So they've not had time to prepare to behave well. You know that's the culture of the school.
It's not a showboat.
Right.
We're not showboating.
It's the culture of the
Okay.
school. And that's what I see. And Whitney Young, oh my gosh. Whitney Young is a jewel that was buried in West Louisville.
Okay.
That school is amazing. Now, I haven't been able to go to Whitney Young since they've moved. But it takes, like I said, the whole village. It's going to take parents, community, teachers, of course, the district, for us to embrace these children. And and the thing at Western Middle today, that principal, she and I think alike, because what she said is, I expect greatness out of my children. And they have created a culture of greatness in that school. Now, what I was not happy with was the physical condition of the school. So,
Okay.
and I know money is coming, and I know we've put funds, and so when you walk into school, you don't want to see a crumbling wall or, paint off the walls.
Mhm.
As opposed to when I went to Breckenridge Franklin, they have used their choice zone money, and they have brightened their school. And so Western is going to be getting their branding done, which will, again, improve the school's physical condition. But the mental condition there is excellent. Those students, oh my gosh, I was blown away. It's some good stuff going on. We just have to duplicate that in all the schools.
Gotcha. Do you want to take one?
Sure. So, speaking of critics of public schools, a lot of that talk of test scores and failing public schools has been used to advocate for Amendment 2, which of course would let lawmakers divert public funds to non-public education. What is your position on Amendment 2?
I'll do a John McCain. Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. One woman's opinion. I think Amendment 2, again, is Frankfurt's effort to take over Jefferson County Public School, and actually the whole of Jefferson County. We know that it will not be the students who are most needy to get those vouchers. I don't believe that it will be the students who are most needy to get those vouchers. It will take at least, I think, Chris, and you can help me with this figure, $120 million. Yeah. Yeah, $120 million away from our schools. Kentucky has 120 counties. 63 of the counties don't even have private schools. Private schools are in Jefferson, Fayette, and Kenton County. So that's where the majority of the money would go. But again, the students who need the money, who need access to really good quality schools and opportunities to the good public schools, that will go away if we take that money away from our school system. So I'm absolutely opposed to Amendment 2.
Speaking of Frankfurt's efforts and their focus on Jefferson County Public Schools, another initiative out of Frankfurt is, of course, the task force that is studying JCPS, and one of the potential outcomes of that is splitting up the district, saying, that the district is too big. What do you think about splitting up our district, and why?
Well, it's going against the trends of educational districts across the country. Because of the lack of resources, more districts across the country are consolidating rather than separating. I strongly believe that if we separate the district, the schools that are already most underserved and those students who can least afford to have funds taken away from their schools will again suffer, and the money will not be proportionately expended across the districts. So again, students, and I'm going to say students in my district, because that's who I'm here to advocate for, will lose out.
Well, I think, and the other piece of that too is, how are you going to staff those schools?
It's a much bigger problem
Yeah.
than just, you've got the district is too big. And when you specifically create legislation that talks about 75,000 students or more, and only one district has 75,000 students or more, it's very targeted. So what is it that you really want? And so you have to ask those questions. But I strongly believe that the funding will be disproportionately advantageous for children in District 1.
There has been a lot of conversation about abandoning DEI practices by businesses and universities. In light of your understanding of DEI and equal opportunity, what is your position, and do you believe all JCPS students have equal opportunities?
Well, I would hope that JCPS, and one thing I can say, Dr. Polio has made a really strong effort in supporting DEI efforts. And the district, the Jefferson County, has made an effort to make sure the underserved schools with the Choice Zone and the new student assignment plan are getting funding to bring those schools and make them equitable. And when I say equitable, I mean equitable and not equal, because they will never be equal when you start from behind already. And so I do support what the district is doing with DEI. And so I hope that they will continue that and make sure that all children, because I think some of the things that are missing is equitable access. When in District 1, you have Brown School, Manual, Brandeis, and some other really choice schools. But the resident children of District 1 don't occupy a whole lot of seats in those schools. So, to be equitable, we might need to start duplicating some of those curriculums in the residential schools.
You have mentioned choice schools a couple times now, and so I want to veer from our questions because I want to ask about that that choice zone, there are 2 schools in your district that have stopped taking new students, Shawnee and Hudson, because there has been such a high interest. Do you think that the choice zone is working as intended? What would you change about it?
What I know of it at this point, all 8 months, it is working. However, while we're putting dollars to improve the physical facilities, we need teachers in the choice zones.
Yes.
So Hudson and Shawnee can't take any more students. They don't have the staff. Shawnee has the physical capacity, but they don't have the staff to facilitate the students. And so when you don't have bodies in the schools and students already outnumber the teachers, that's not a good thing. And so we have to get, again, more creative and more aggressive about our recruitment efforts to get teachers in those 2 schools. And Hudson has to get a new school. They have to finish their school first because, again, it's overpopulated. So that, that just, it's uncomfortable.
I'll go back to the list now. How should we measure learning progress of our students, considering that they start with such varied experience and skills?
Repeat your question.
Yeah. How should we measure learning progress of our students, considering that they start with such varied experiences and skills? So thinking of.
Are you saying and skills or
and.
And.
Sorry.
Oh,
and skills.
and
Yes.
skills. Okay.
So thinking of our multilingual learners and, the different experiences that people have at home and before they even enter school.
Well, that's what makes pre-K so critically important. But it also makes it important for parents to work with their kids before they get to school. And I know every child does not have that kind of family life and that opportunity, so pre-K then becomes extremely important. But again, today when I visited Breckenridge Franklin, they talked about that very thing. Because it's a bilingual school, because children are coming from all different experiences. And when you go in there and you see the instructions, the instructional methods that they're using to make sure kids understand phonics, that they understand, they're able to cite words, that they're able to do math, it was amazing. And so when you give them the basic foundations, the basic learning blocks in the pre-K and kindergarten, that levels the playing field for all kids. But that has to happen in every school. And so the good thing about that is that we have introduced curriculum that goes across every school. And so if you leave Breckenridge Franklin and you go to Foster and you're in the 1st grade, you're going to have the same curriculum. So that's a wonderful thing.
The other part of that I think she's after is that achievement gap.
Mm-hmm.
That achievement gap is there. It's been there for a while. That's nothing new for us. So as you look at the achievement gap, does something come to mind as to how we as a district can address or do something different for that achievement gap? Because we've got kids that look like us that are excelling, but we've got a bundle of kids that are making such slow progress that gap keeps widening, and then it'll come together for a grade level, and then it's widening again. So where are you?
Well,
What can we
here's
do?
here's the reality, that the achievement gap between black and white students in graduation rate and post-secondary readiness has closed now for 2 consecutive years.
Yes.
For me, again, these very specific goals that the board has set, which include elementary school academic readiness, and it's talking about the percentage of 5th grade students who score ready on the JCPS readiness test, middle school academic readiness, and the percentage of 8th graders who score ready on that test. And I don't want this to all be tied around standardized tests, because it's more than that. Okay. High school academic readiness, and that's the percentage of 12th grade students who score ready. Third grade literacy. And this one is extremely important to me because it's the third grade that young black boys began to lose interest, and they start talking about the pipeline from
Prison
prison pipeline, and it starts in third grade. So that's extremely important to me. But and literacy is the goal for that one. And then the 8th grade is numeracy. So if you can't count your money, when you make it, you won't know that you made it. But these 5 goals gives the board an opportunity to hold the district accountable. We have set some very specific goals, and we'll have some very specific outcomes that will be expected. And I mentioned this a minute ago when we were doing this, and Dr. Dina Dossett has assured me that she will, because I asked for these goals not only to be tracked for all students, but I want specific results for black students and students of color. Because my goal is to close the achievement gap. And if all these numbers are clumped together as student population, again, we still don't know what those students are doing.
Who's doing what?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What measures and/or policies would you recommend to address the mental health and safety of JCPS students?
Well, they're putting mental health facilitator in all the JCPS schools, and I think that's critically important. I believe the fastest growing number of individuals with mental health issues are teenage girls post-COVID. And so having that mental health professional there, hopefully there will be a culture that the students feel comfortable in talking to that professional, but also that teachers and other staff within the school building recognize that, this child might be going through something. Let me recommend that they go speak with the mental health professional rather than suspending them.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that's what I would like to see happen.
Thank you. JCPS also has an increasing international student population. As we mentioned, I don't want to cite the numbers, but I know Krista Johnson, our education reporter, I think it's like 1 in 5 students now. She did a good story about that. How would you like to see the district better serve this group?
Well, the district is working very hard and has made progress in serving this population. And I don't know if literature is sent home in different languages, written in different languages, but you really do have to meet people where they are. And so whether that's making sure that there's an interpreter every time they come into school so that parents can speak intelligently and feel comfortable in speaking with school staff, making sure that language is, documents are translated, that it's posted on the website in different languages. Those are the things that I think have to happen, along with the other wraparound services, because just imagine if you've moved from an entirely different country and you're coming here. So those same mental health professionals that we have in the schools, those students also have to have, and parents have to have access.
Speaking of parents, what role should parents play in the education of their children and in our schools?
Come on.
Okay. I was out campaigning Saturday and was kind of beat up for what I said, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. Parents have to be accountable for their children. And again, I understand every household is different. Every parent does not have a job where they can get up and say, oh, I've got a student-teacher conference at 5 o'clock or at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I will be back. That's not the reality for every parent. So when you aren't working, you need to call the teacher and say, what time can we talk? if your child has missed homework, then you need to find out where it is, what's going on, why has he missed, what can I do to help? And not go to the school and tell the teacher it's their fault that their child is misbehaving, and that it's their job to correct some things that I think should be handled at home. Parents have to be accountable for their children.
Whoa.
We've talked about a lot of very important issues tonight, but what programs and accomplishments of JCPS would you build upon to help our community point to the district with pride?
Certainly the choice zone, and the additional dollars that are going to improve those schools. I think that's critically important. I want us to be much more robust and much more aggressive in our teacher recruitment. I'd like to see us be as aggressive in recruiting teachers as we are in bus drivers, because they're both equally critical to the success of our children in school. Again, the new learning programs that are going into place. There's one program called Modern Teacher that is an online, but if the teachers do it correctly, it's an online program. It is amazing. And I was at Hudson School, and I saw some of that and just saw the enthusiasm of the teachers who are so excited about teaching it. And so I think if we can just continue with the things that are working and working well and duplicate those in as many schools as possible, that's the way we should go. Doesn't mean you recreate the wheel, but just do what you do and do it well.
Thank you. We've got some audience questions now that Dr. Greer will start with.
We have some questions from the audience, and thank you. These were the questions that our committees had come up with, but we appreciate you taking the time to answer those. But from our audience, one of the things that they need some clarity on is what neighborhoods does District 1 include? Where are you?
It's exhausting. District 1 is, I think, geographic or student population-wise, probably the largest district. It literally goes as far west as the river, as far south as Algonquin Parkway, all of downtown, Nulu. Like I said, I was out at Breckenridge, Franklin, which is the Payne, Lexington Road area. It's huge, but those are Germantown. Those are the ones that I can remember.
Okay, gotcha. Many of the superintendent's cabinet experience has been in high school. When you address the transportation issue, are you looking at child development of elementary children? So I'm not quite sure what they're asking you here. When you address the transportation issue, how will you look at the child development issue at the elementary level? Because the experiences, I guess, from the superintendent's cabinet at this point, they've got a high school lens and not looking through an elementary lens. So any condition there?
I'm still not sure I understand that question. And how does that impact elementary school transportation? Is that?
They're not looking at the, let me get back to that. Let me see if I can get something else out of that, okay? A recent report stated that there has been an increase in bullying in JCPS. What additional measures can be taken to help students that are experiencing bullying and that are being the bullies?
Again, mental health is all over that question because the bullies are obviously have some mental health issues, and then those who are being bullied, mental health, they will be impacted. Their mental health will be impacted. JCPS has created a new police department, And my hope is that we will have security in schools that form a relationship with the children, that they will feel comfortable in going and talking to those individuals, and not feel like, you know, as they, what is it, snitches get stitches, so that there will be repercussions, but that they will have a relationship with the security people that they can go and talk, but again, and feel comfortable talking to those security people in the school. But if, as a parent, if I get a call from the school about my child being a bully, or that my child is being bullied, I would hope that I'm able to go to that school and with the other parents, get the issue resolved. Again, parents have to take some accountability for their children and their children's behavior in school.
Okay. Question. Some children have parents who can't read to them, and that's because the parents, some can't read to them or write with them. How can we address or remedy this situation of parents helping their children who can't read and can't write and support them? So what can we do, or how do we have a remedy, and at the same time keep these parents, help these parents to maintain their respect? I think that's what they're asking.
And that yeah, you can't help your child if you can't read. So hopefully within, you know, whatever wraparound services the school system can offer. You know, they have adult education, which is a little bit scary right now. As I understand, it's a little tentative. So, but promoting programs like adult ed and helping parents get GED and helping beyond just the reading, but other skill sets that parents need to cope every single day. Because, you know, you can't help the child if you can't read. But there are so many other life skills that parents need help with. And hopefully within JCPS, there are the resources to recognize that and make referrals.
Okay. Do you know why our yellow school buses no longer say Jefferson County Public Schools on some of them? Last year, there were many that say Jefferson County Schools, but not now.
I don't have a clue. They may have been trying to get buses in so quickly because a lot of the buses are much newer. And so they may have been trying to get buses in and get students on those buses that they haven't had time to, as they say, tag them. But I don't know why.
Well, and if they are renting
Or,
buses.
I was going to say, or if they're outsourced buses.
Outsourced buses, then that black, for Jefferson County
Public
is,
School.
there's a black framework that goes across that.
Mhm.
So it doesn't say Jefferson County, it just doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Because we are renting those buses and bringing those drivers in. Okay? Splitting up JCPS has previously been considered, is being considered. What are the pros and cons, or do you have any pros and cons for splitting up the district?
No pros. And I've stated my cons.
Okay.
I don't think it will be equitable for the most underserved children.
What are the top 2 successes of JCPS currently, and what are the top 2 failures of JCPS currently?
Well, I'm going to say successes because we've got 28 schools that have existed over the last 3 years that have come out of being in the bottom 5% in the content support instructional. So that's to be applauded. Our average graduation rate has gone up. It's at an all-time high of 88.2%. We've got post-secondary readiness at an all-time high of 82.3%. And again, the achievement gap for black and white students in post-secondary readiness has narrowed over the past 2 years. Those are successes. Failures are not so good incidences, clearly is the transportation. It's clearly the transportation issue. And then I'm going to say the unfortunate shortage of teachers.
Shortage of teachers.
Mhm.
So as we look at the teacher need, what is it, what can we as a district do to help promote education to the point that we might be able to get more folks thinking about being teachers?
Well, I'm glad you asked. First and foremost, we have to tell the people in Frankfort to give our teachers a raise.
Okay.
You know, teachers need to be paid just like anybody else. And when they do well, perhaps they need a bonus just like anybody else. Then we need to be more, again, creative in the way we recruit teachers. Forming partnerships with, I think, only 6% of the Jefferson County school teachers are teachers of color. And so forming partnerships with HBCUs across the country, not just here in Louisville or just here in Kentucky, but across the country. And then just making sure that as we, again, work to accomplish the goals that the board has set out, that they understand that this is a district that, and I'm going to put this out here because this is what I expect as a board member, and that's greatness. Greatness.
Past good. We're trying to get past good.
We're past good.
Okay.
We want all of our children to know that they're great, and we expect greatness out of them.
Well, you know, when we talk about teacher recruitment, that's very dear to me because as the former HR person, that was a biggie for us
Mhm.
because of the need of getting teachers, not only teachers of color, but teachers that were quality teachers into the district. Because in order for you to be able to do what you're talking about in terms of that achievement gap, we've got to have some good folks. We've got to have good teachers out there doing what needs to happen for kids, with kids,
Mhm.
to make it work. So,
And not that money drives everything, but if you pay me well,
I might come to stay.
I might come to stay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I want you to bring your passion, and then I'm going to pay you for your passion.
Do you feel that parenting is failing our public schools?
As I've said before, parents have to be accountable and work in concert and in partnership with the schools to help our children be successful. So I'm not going to say parenting is failing our school. I'm going to say that I'd like to see more partnership with parents in our schools.
Why is JCPS divided by traditional and non-traditional schools? Stay in the church.
Now, that question was before me. I mean, those are the academic programs that they've developed. And again, what I'm saying is we know what works well in traditional schools, and if those programs are working well, whatever the label is, duplicate those programs in what we call non-traditional schools.
Okay. Got that one. Do you have another one?
Got a couple over here. This one has a few topics that they would like to discuss, but I'll stick with one that you've mentioned a couple times, with the JCPS task force and Amendment 2, and, speaking about Frankfort. Can the school board interface with the state legislature, and what will you do to improve the board's relationship with state lawmakers?
Again, I don't know that I can personally impact that. I think the evidence should speak for itself. The fact that JCPS has received awards for the improved education coming out of COVID It's a big deal. No other district in the state has done that. And they did it with the 96,000 students that they have. And so I think it's just going to have to be evidence-based that we continue to show the improvement. But we got to do the work to make the improvement happen. And then to show Frankfurt that this is what we're doing. And just continue to extend an olive branch and be transparent.
Looking at one of the other, it's not necessarily a question, it's just a topic of homeless students, but I do believe that is a big issue for a lot of families. I mean, it's really hard to learn when you don't have a home and you're not really sure where you're always going to be. So I guess as a school board member, how are you paying attention to that issue, and what does what would you like to see happen?
Well,
to
more
help them?
affordable housing has to be addressed in the city, and I know our city is working on that. But again, in partnership with the city of Louisville, our metro government, you continue to advocate for those kinds of initiatives. I'm on the board of the St. John Center. And so I see the impact that homelessness has, not every day, but I do see the impact that homelessness has on students, on families, on people. I walk the bridge every morning and I see a whole population of homeless people. And our city has to do something about that. And again, you can't learn if you don't have a roof over your head. It's gonna be hard. If you're hungry, it's gonna be hard. And I belong to a sorority, and I know we just built beds for students, because you can't learn if you don't have a good night's sleep. And so something that's fundamental as a comfortable bed that so many of us take for granted. Those are the things that the community has to step up and help make happen for our students.
What are teachers allowed to do to embrace new technologies like ChatGPT that are not going away but are often, it says I'm not sure what this word is, but the question stands. How do you feel about new technologies and teachers? What are they allowed to do to embrace them?
I don't know what they're allowed to do. What I see in school is that everybody has the electronic whiteboards. Again, this program that I just mentioned, the Modern Teacher software program. So I think we cannot run from technology. Teachers are going to have to be able to use technology and be thoroughly educated in what technology can do and how it can help them teach and reach the children.
And that's it.
Recently, JCPS, it has been brought to light about suspensions, unequal suspensions based on perhaps color, based on perhaps economics, and the district is working to change that mark. So what is it that the board can do to help the district move toward equity in terms of suspensions and expulsions, and what do we need to do with schools, with teachers, with principals, and what can the board insist upon?
Well, this has been a long time problem.
Yes.
Like I said, I ran for the office in 2005. It was an issue then. This recent case brought forward by the Department of Education, the Office of Racial DLC. It's real, and the district has recognized that there is a problem. They've owned it, but I think there is still training that teachers can take, training that administration can take to recognize some of the basic microaggressions, some of the basic forms of racism that we don't even think of as racism, to recognize that this is out of kilter, something's wrong here. And the board, again, has to ask for full transparency and ask for numbers. How are we doing, how are we doing that? How are we addressing this? And ask for those numbers to be given on a regular basis.
We have a Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And we talked about, we know the universities are getting rid of that and all of that, but as a district, is there something that our Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, from the board perspective, needs to be doing that they aren't doing to make sure that things like this unequal suspensions are not happening?
We just had a report from the Department of Equity and Poverty is what it's called, DEP. And it was encouraging, but again, I think it's the board's responsibility and the community's responsibility when we see things like this report exposed to call the district to task. Ask for transparency, because if things are being hidden, they can never really be addressed. And then ask for to see the numbers, to see what's happening, and to question why is this happening. And the board has to do the same thing.
We've got an extensive budget in Jefferson County Public Schools. And within that budget, I remember being at a meeting, and one of the things that they talked about was the fact that we had so many vacancies in teachers that we had these extra dollars that we can use to do some other things. You remember that one?
I remember that for the bus drivers.
Yeah.
But actually, the schools have been desperately underfunded since 2008. We're still being funded at the 2008 level.
Rate based
Yeah.
for students.
Yeah.
per child.
2008 inflation, that's the number word I'm trying to think of the 2008 inflation rate. So there's really not this access money
Mhm.
that everybody thinks there is, because we're underfunded.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So what has to happen is Frankfurt, again, has to step up to the plate and do right by the district.
Great. Well, we simply appreciate your coming out tonight and taking the time to be with us and answering our questions.
Thank you. I would like to remind everyone that we do have another forum with the candidates of District 4 coming up tomorrow evening from 6 to 7:30 at the Southwest Regional Library on Dixie Highway. That is, again, with the same partners as tonight. And we